there has been quite a few debates, talks that were not specifically about politics or about wars or about specific current events. They were just reflections on the new order of the world. I saw this common thread among these appointments in this last category. I remind you that I created these categories. They are not part of the program of the festival, okay? It's just a reorganization that I did. I saw this sort of need for taking a step back, a huge step back, and look at the world in its entirety in this historical moment and reflect about it, and possibly find a sense and meaning of what's happening, and trying to also comprehend the present in order to kind of predict the future. So as a first appointment for this category, I chose this one, titled Globalizzazione al capolinea, which I would translate with Is globalization ended? ? We have dramatically discovered that the relationship between globalization and peace is more complex than we thought. I'm here re-elaborating from the little introduction in the program because I didn't attend this talk, okay? A new priority given to politics over economics is bringing governments to privilege national security over economic efficiency. Alliances have been forming among countries that compete for resources and growth, but have different values and visions of the world. There are strong trends of deglobalization, fed by socio-economical reasons, but also geopolitical ones. The transformations happening will bring deal-breaking changes. To comprehend them and to be able to manage the changes is fundamental in order to be able to orientate ourselves in the world that's coming. Trasformazioni e contemporaneità, l'impasse del soggetto. Translated, transformations and contemporaneity, and whatever. This is an attempt at translating this title. This talk offered a psychoanalytical approach to the changing capitalistic world while reading Jacques Lacan. So the main concepts were that on one side we see a progressive degradation of all figures of authority, from the parents to the teachers to the judges and so on. And on the other side, nowadays capitalism sets up the enjoyment of consumer goods at the place of command, creating some sort of an imperative to limitless enjoyment. So these first two talks, there are other 6 that I'm going to present to you in this category, give you an idea of what it means, order of the world. It's just reflections on how the world is changing, and it's this category is the exact correspondence to the keyword that the curators have chosen for this year's edition of the festival, which is, I remind you, metamorphosis. A talk that I am so sorry I didn't manage to go is this one, a discussion about scientific research in the gap between north and south of the world, meaning in the impact that mankind has on the environment in the 2 spheres of the world. So there were 4 guests that have been debating, and they were, let me pull out the page. This is going to give you a good an idea of how interesting this talk must have been. Atish Dabolkar, an Indian theory physicist, physicist. Mario Enrico Pe, professor of genetics, of agricultural genetics. Giorgio Tamburlini, pediatrician. He especially does a lot of projects of education to pediatric assistance in third world countries. And Michele Morgante, professor of genetics also at the University of Udine. So interesting. The questions they tried to answer have been: how can the more advanced countries transfer science and technology to the others? How can we favor the social and economical progress of the third world countries? How can we assist their transition towards greener productive processes? How can we do all this without falling into a new form of colonialism? Super interesting. Next one, crisi di civiltà e disordine del mondo. Crisis of civilization or culture and disorder of the world. Basically about how the current chaos has put into crisis the relationship between civilizations or cultures. I don't quite know how to translate this term into English, civiltà in Italian. Each one of them is rethinking their anthropological vision of the world in their own way, which is separate from the others. So globalization is really turning into an explosion that destroys our certainties. And this was a debate between a geopolitician, an anthropologist, a professor of political geography, and a teacher of Chinese language, history, and philosophy. I love when disciplines talk to each other and kind of debate and crash into each other. We need more of this. Speaking of China, by the way, there has been a book presented about China titled China at the Center. Just mentioning it because it's important for the general picture, I think. And speaking of China, let's talk about the United States, shall we? One of the most popular appointments of the whole festival has been another speech by Lucio Caracciolo. I started with him and I'm finishing with him, apparently. He gave a speech in the wars category that I presented in the wars category, which is the first one that I talked about. And, I don't like him very much. Not him as a person, of course. I don't like his approach. It's very cold, scientific, strategic, although he's not talking about mathematics, he's talking about geopolitics. Whatever. He's the founder and director of the famous magazine of geopolitics, Limes. And in this talk, he presented the last edition of the magazine. Last number. Yeah, the last book they released. The title is Mal d'America. I don't know quite how to translate this. America ache. Mal d'America. It's like when you have stomach ache, we say mal di stomaco. In this case, it's mal di America. So it's like America ache. It's kind of a joke title, so it's hard to transfer into English. Of course, it's about the decline of the United States. I haven't been able to attend because this was an event that needed reservation, and already days before the festival even started, all the seats were booked. So I am just reporting something from the introduction, again, from the program. We were immersed in the reassuring American century. And we were so immersed in this that we didn't realize that the dominance of the United States had started to go into a deep crisis. Now their leadership is deeply questioned inside and outside of America. And together with it, we are seeing the decline of the liberal societies, the neoliberal capitalism, and of the international collaborations and interdependencies. So, what are the consequences on countries like ours, Italy, which have been thriving under the protective wing of the American empire? I don't really want to end this whole presentation of this year's program with this. I want to end it on a more positive note. So I'm just going to mention the presentation of a magazine, a new magazine that has started in 2021. And I think it's quite interesting. It's called Sotto il Vulcano, which means under the volcano. And it's a quarterly magazine that aims at showing, documenting, and reimagining the reality after COVID. So it stems from the idea that from the collective trauma of the pandemic, new ideas can come. And so the objective of this magazine is to collect them and to open a space for discussion.